Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm James.
And this is the Decahedron RPG Podcast. Hi, James.
Hi, Joe.
How was your week, sir?
Long and tedious. Still working on getting my shower fixed, and I will recommend not trying bucket showers. They do not have fun.
No, that doesn't sound fun at all. So for me, I am, I think I'm going to get a tattoo this weekend. Why not? All right. So this is a special weird week because even though it sounds like we're recording an episode, we are not going to record an episode. We've already recorded this episode. This was one of those episodes we were keeping in the back in case of emergency and needed to push something out there. But this has been sitting there since August and it's starting to smell a little bit. So I thought we would, put it out. I listened to it today. I went through the edit stuff. So it's all ready to go. It comes in at about 9.5 minutes. Did you listen to it by any chance?
75% of it, yes.
Yeah, okay. So anything you wanted to add real quick?
There's a lot of things I want to add, but no, I'll leave it out.
All right. Yeah. So what the episode is about, it's about classes versus skills. You know, do you like a class-based system or a skill-based system? It will come to no surprise to anybody listening that James and I fall on opposite sides. The episode does stand pretty good. I've listened to it again today. I thought it was a pretty good episode. I will say that we talked about one point again to hybrid systems and we never talked about them. So I will say real quick, like D&D 3E, I think is a hybrid system because it has classes, but then you can add in skills and skills don't have to be from your class because they have the cross-class skill system. Not bad. But that's all we're going to say. So let's give that episode a listen right now.
Hi, James.
Hi, Joe. What are we talking about today?
Well, this is our 4th episode, although when people hear this, it might only be the 3rd, because the first episode we recorded, I don't think I'm going to put that one out right away. I think I'm going to wait a while until people are used to hearing us. That one's a little clunky because we didn't have the header info and the stuff at the back, the intro and the outro. And I'm just going to have to edit that. But that's besides the point. This week, I thought we would talk about classes versus skill-based systems. What I mean by that is like the old traditional D&D, where you have your 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 classes, fighter, cleric, magic user, and what your class can do is assumed within that. Thief is the great example, pickpockets, all that stuff. Apparently, nobody else in D&D can pickpockets, only thieves. So that's where you have class-based abilities. Nobody else can cast spells other than a magic user. Well,
or cleric.
Spells. That's why I was saying magic user spells. No one else can turn undead other than a cleric. Your abilities, what you can do, is tied to your class. And often how well you can do them is tied to your class's level. A 3rd level thief is better than a 1st level thief at picking pockets. Makes perfect sense. But they all go up on their abilities the same. Versus a skill-based system where your ability to pick pockets is separate from your ability to climb walls, which is a separate skill from your ability to turn undead. And any character can take any skill, provided they have the right story reasons for it, by spending usually like experience points or character points at the beginning.
And ability scores in some cases.
Yes. I'll put the question to you first. Of those two extremes, which do you prefer? Do you like the classes or do you like the skill-based?
I've done both. I think I like the classes. They're a much cleaner thing. As I'm sure you know, I tend to try to play well-rounded characters, not being an extreme to any one side.
I think you like to play very munchkin-y characters, but we'll get into that in some other episode.
I feel disappointed in that. I don't think I do munchkins. I do interesting.
We should do a whole episode called Is James a Munchkin? Probably do it when we have more listeners, because I would love to hear people call in and either defend you or bury you.
That's going to need to be a big hole now. I'm a big guy.
Anyway, this isn't going to come as a surprise. I prefer skill-based systems.
No surprise in that.
I just had to say to our listeners, we don't rehearse these things. Actually, I'm very militant in not rehearsing these. I try not to even talk about the episodes much beforehand. James likes to try to make sure we're on the same page about what we're going to talk about, but I try to avoid it because I want the conversation to be very spontaneous. But unlike some other podcasters out there, I'm not going to name any names, but they're very honest about it. So I'm not casting any shade there, but they agree ahead of time, like on a topic like this, who will be on one side and who will be on another side and what they'll discuss. We don't do that. The reason I asked James to join me on this podcast is not only that he's like one of my best friends in the universe, and our gaming history starts right around the same time. Like I said in other podcasts, he's the one who introduced me to the game indirectly. We see a lot of the gaming topics differently, and we friendly josh each other about these differences. That's why when I was coming up with the podcast idea, originally I was going to do it solo. I said, no, I want a second voice, and I want someone who will bring out the other points. And James immediately sprung to mind because he and I just game a little differently and yet a little bit the same. Friendship. It's a wonderful thing. Anyway, I prefer skills. I think you could make more interesting characters with a skill-based system. In D&D, before we get into the hybrid systems where we start adding skills, like in late first edition AD&D, when you start getting non-weapon proficiencies. Prior to that, all your fighters are the same. Every single fighter is the same. They have the same abilities. They can hit, they can wear armor, they can use any weapon. There's nothing that makes one any different from the other than how you play it, agreed. But every fighter is the same. When you get into a system like GURPS, let's go a little more modern, Savage Worlds. But there you can make your fighter different. Not only is he a good fighter, in GURPS you can get a little carried away. He's a great sword fighter, but he's a bad mace fighter. That's too much detail for me. But hey, it makes you happy. Play that way. Not only is he a good fighter, but he's good at wilderness survival, or he's not good at wilderness survival, but he's great at city, streetwise, stuff like that. And I think that makes more interesting characters, gives different players ability to shine the spotlight in different scenarios. I like that better.
I'm going to agree to most of that, but to your comment about all fighters are the same, you're right. There was only so many ways to go, but the backstory was a big thing for me, and that is getting away from skills or levels. It's getting a personality to a character.
I'm going to use that argument against you. Aha, you fallen into my trap. I agree that background is amazingly important. And I think that when you have a skill-based system, you can make your character mechanically match the background you have in mind. I have this fighter who was raised by the local thieves guild. So he has some thieving skills, but not a lot. So you can make that fighter with low-level pickpockets and stuff like that. And mechanically, he matches, and it's much better. Mind you, in newer versions of the game, you could probably do the same by doing multi-class and taking like maybe one level of thief. And is it thief these days or is it rogue? They keep changing. Anyway.
It's both.
Taking like one level of thief and like multiple levels of fighter. But by the time you get there, you have to gain like 3 or 4 levels before you can actually solidify that down. So again, good backgrounds is an argument in favor of skills in my mind.
On the mixed levels, I've done that only in a few games. I always hated that. It's like, okay, I just made enough experience to go up a level. Now, do I do fighter? Do I do thief? Do I do magic user? It just, to me, it was not a good use of a character. And I'm going to go back to what I think the different classes was in the original game, in my opinion, is that back to your style. You always want someone to have something unique to their character, so it makes them have a spotlight somewhere in the game, not just one person doing everything and everyone else following behind and just taking out the minor monsters. What is your thought on that?
I agree completely. I just think skills are the better way to go. If you're going to do it in classes, then you have to do something weird and say, okay, only one fighter, only one magic user, only one cleric. Oh, we have a 4th player now. Okay, you can choose from any of those. But, you know, I don't like that stuff. You're going to laugh because you've heard me do it before, but I don't
That's
like
where I was going to go. Almost every game I've done with you, you want someone to have their own unique characteristics.
I always want that. When it's easier to do in a skill-based system. In a skill-based system, you almost don't have to say anything because people are going to naturally do different things.
Sometimes they do overlap a lot, which fighters, you always want that. But the other skills, one person doing it is usually enough. But each person wants to be that magic user or the cleric. Not many want to be the cleric, though, before we go on that subject.
Actually, I keep thinking if I were to play in an old D&D game, I would absolutely play the cleric.
Every game I've gone to, and I'm talking convention-wise right now, everyone in the table, and this is just total strangers, no one wanted to play the cleric. And there's been a couple of games where if I didn't play the cleric, there would have been no cleric at the table.
In fact, my very first character I played was a cleric. You know what? We're going to put this on the episode list because we're getting far afield. We're going to do an episode on the cleric, not the one that you have on there about origins and stuff, just about whether or not you should play a cleric, you being the generic you. I think we covered everything we have to say on this thought. What do you think?
I think we have.
If we have any listeners out there and you want to tell us how you feel about it, send us some feedback. If you send audio feedback, we'll play it on the air, so to speak. If you send us email feedback, we'll read it, and that might spark. Gee, I'm starting to talk like you. That might spark. There's an R in that word. That might spark some additional conversation between us. Anyway, we'd love your feedback. The instructions are going to be in the outro. They're going to be in the show notes. But that's all I have for this week, James. Anything else from you?
I think we can end this one with that. And gentlemen, ladies, please do listen.
Well, they're not listening. They won't hear you ask that. Anyway, thanks for joining me, James. I'll see you. Talk to you next week. And thanks, everyone, for listening.
All right. And that was the episode. What did you think, James?
I could do a lot better is what I'm going to say, but we're not going to redo it.
No, we're not going to redo it. Although we could always do a follow-on. And if someone sends us clever feedback, we will definitely have to address that. And speaking of clever feedback, we have this from Jason.
Giving you 2 more questions. You can, spread them out, obviously. What is your favorite game mechanic and your least favorite game mechanic? And you can decide what game mechanic means. Is it advantage, disadvantage? Is it maybe if you're playing a game, you use percentile dice, something that lets you flip the dice. So if you roll 14, you can flip it to a 41. Is it something like ascending AC? So whatever, I'll let you define what game mechanic means to you. But, so one week, one show, what's your favorite game mechanic? And for another show, what's your least favorite? Just trying to keep you going there.
Okay, James. Well, to close out this episode, let's answer one of those questions right now. And I guess the question we should answer is the first one he asked. What is your favorite game mechanic?
That is hard to say. There's just so many. In each game, I have something I like different. I think my favorite is the percentage dice in the Elf Quest.
I think I had the game, but I don't think I ever played it. So how is that different from any other percentage system?
It's not a big difference. It makes the game interesting by having such a wide spread of numbers that you have to meet. So in some cases, it's more likely to succeed. In other cases, you're more likely to fail horribly.
All right. I thought that's pretty much how all games work, but maybe that one's a little different. Maybe I'll try to dig up a copy and take a look. So for me, I'm going to say that it's the core mechanic in Lucky 7, the game I'm working on. And that's not me plugging myself, right? That's if I'm going to make a game, I'm going to take the thing I like the best and I'm going to shove it in that game. Just makes sense. The thing I like about it is it's always the same kind of die. The result is always the same. A 7 or better is a success. A 5 or lower is a failure. The 6 is that yes, but type answer. So you never have to look anything up. You know it's there. And then the only other thing that's, I'm doing air quotes, so not that you can hear them, different about it, although with the way that life has gone in the years, it's not different at all. It's what 5e calls advantage and disadvantage. I call it penalty and bonus. But this predates that. Back in like the 90s, I had pretty much the same system for the Decahedron game I was working on, only that was what I used for armor and weapons. But even then, that was inspired by a section in the appendices of Fudge called Min, Mid, Max. And that in turn, Stephen O'Sullivan got that from someone else. I like that. It's rather than doing a whole bunch of adding and subtracting and doing all that, you just get a general assessment of the situation. Do the characters have a bonus or do they have a penalty? If it's a bonus, roll 2, take the highest. If it's a penalty, roll 2, take the lowest. If it's neither, just roll 1. Bam, done. Quick and simple. Let you get on with the story. Let you keep things moving. For gritty realism, probably wouldn't work very well. That's not the kind of game I usually do. I like, at least these days, more cinematic adventure type, and I think it works very well for that. So it's either that or it's this guy Vito who runs a game repair shop downtown. Get it? Game mechanic, automobile. Yeah, okay. That's a dad joke. All right, yeah. I think that wraps everything up. Thanks for joining me, James.
Thank you for inviting me to this lovely whatever, and thank you for listening to the audience.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for listening. Do please send us feedback. All the methods are in the show. Well, they are in the show notes. They're also in the little outro bit. And probably right about now the music is playing, and you normally stop listening right here. Listen to the rest. It will tell you where to go to send us feedback. Other than that, thanks for joining us. Have a great week. You too, James. Have a great week, and happy gaming for everyone.
Bye, Joe.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Decahedron RPG Cast. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message by calling 562-774-2278. That's 562-RPG-CAST. Or by visiting sayhi.chat/Decahedron. You can also email us at feedback@decahedron.com. Links are in the show notes. For more information, visit decahedron.com. Remember that Decahedron is spelled with a K. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. Logos by Design Cat. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep those dice rolling.